victims and ensure the safety and security of the people and communities of the West Midlands. I'm looking forward to hearing from the Acting Chief Constable in connection with the plans he has as part of Operation Strive. The strategic aim of Operation Strive will be to restore the trust and confidence that the public have in West Midlands Police and learn the lessons from how the force responded to the fixture. Acting Chief Constable Green is taking personal responsibility for this operation as the Gold Commander. That is essential because without trust and confidence in our police force, it is not possible to ensure that policing is with the consent of the people or to have an effective and efficient police force. Acting Chief Constable Green will be updating us on the objectives and detail within Operation Strive during the course of the meeting. However, one of my statutory duties is to hold the Chief Constable and West Midlands Police to account on behalf of the people who have elected me, and that is the primary purpose of today's board. Part of the process that's required, if trust and confidence is to be rebuilt, is for West Midlands Police not only to be held to account, but to be seen to be held to account. The HMIC process is of course important. However, it is a national body. The Home Affairs Select Committee is of course important. However, it sits in Westminster and no West Midlands MPs sit on it. Today is about local democratic accountability, and local democratic accountability matters. West Midlands Police must acknowledge with candour the significant concerns and shortcomings that have been laid bare in recent weeks. West Midlands Police must confront and face up to the significant concerns and shortcomings that have been laid bare in recent weeks. West Midlands Police must identify, understand and take ownership of the significant concerns and shortcomings that have been laid bare in recent weeks. That has caused harm to West Midlands Police as an organisation, but more importantly, it has caused harm to the people and communities that it exists to serve. On the 8th of December, I requested West Midlands Police to prepare a report to my Accountability and Governance Board today. That request set out 41 questions for the force to answer, and that report has been published on my website and it is before the board today. As a consequence of the referrals that have now been made to the IOPC in connection with the Chief Constable and other officers, I understand that there will be some matters in connection with which it might not be possible for West Midlands Police to provide full and frank answers, so as not to prejudice the IOPC investigation. I'm also mindful that I am the appropriate authority in relation to the former Chief Constable. My role in connection with any disciplinary proceedings that might follow and the need not to prejudice any ongoing investigation. However, please rest assured that I will be putting as many questions and raising as many concerns that I am able to do in the time available. I have many questions that I intend to put to Acting Chief Constable Green. I therefore ask that as far as possible the answers are provided concisely so as to ensure that we're able to address all of the relevant matters of concern during the course of the time that we have available to us. The West Midlands Police report is to be presented by Acting Chief Constable Green, and I'm asking that the presentation please be kept to no more than 10 minutes because board members will have had an opportunity to read the paper. It's available to members of the public and media to read, and so as to importantly maximise the opportunity for questions and discussion of the issues arising from the report. So, Acting Chief Constable, can you please present the report?
Commissioner, good morning. I'd like to start with an opening address from me, and then the Temporary Deputy Chief Constable will open the report, both of which will be done within the 10 minutes. So, Commissioner, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to update yourself and attendees on the immediate actions that I have taken since you appointed me as the Acting Chief Constable just over a week ago. I again start by paying my respects to today, remembering and rightly honouring victims and survivors of International Holocaust Memorial Day. I would like to start by reiterating my full and sincere public apology that I gave on day one of my appointment. The failings identified by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services in their preliminary reviews reported to the Home Secretary in relation to our planning, policing and subsequent response to the Aston Villa versus Macabi Tel Aviv football match are damning. A direct impact of our actions has been a loss of trust and confidence from the public of the West Midlands. More specifically, I know we have damaged our relationship with individuals and Jewish communities, locally, nationally and internationally. It personally saddens me to hear of the damage that this has caused to our relationships with the public. Last Tuesday, I listened to members of the public reflect upon the personal impact that the events of recent weeks have had on them, the upset that people have felt and the strength people have shown through these difficult times. I praise the resilience and courage of these individuals and thank them for their honesty and candour in sharing their experiences with me. Our response to criticisms of the force, including our reaction to the Home Secretary's statement to Parliament, has been too defensive. I am committed to West Midlands Police learning from these events, but most importantly, taking immediate action. This will be focused on repairing the damage which has resulted in the loss of confidence that the public and diverse communities have in us. The public losing confidence in policing undermines the core principles of British policing. We will now work tirelessly to restore that trust, ensuring that we work with the public to prevent crime and police without fear or favour. Recognising the significant impact that events have had, I, on taking up the position of Acting Chief Constable, declared this a critical incident for the force, ensuring the absolute due focus and attention we need to bring. I am greatly aware that the public perception of how matters concerning West Midlands Police planning for the fixture have been veiled in ambiguity and potentially inaccurate information. I am therefore unequivocally committed to ensuring I come here today being as clear and transparent as I can. To demonstrate this transparency, on my first day in office as Acting Chief Constable, I directed that a voluntary referral be made to the IOPC. Subsequent to this IOPC referral, they have decided to use their power of initiative to call in the matter and independently investigate to determine if any officer or staff member may have a case to answer for misconduct. Information relating to the planning, policing and response have on occasions developed at pace, and therefore individuals may well have provided details based on what they knew at the time. Having requested the IOPC investigate, I am very mindful that there may be matters which at this time I am not able to comment on, and to avoid the risk of any prejudice to that investigation. There may be details which become apparent as a result of the IOP's detailed investigation, which I am not privy to today. Neither Temporary Deputy Chief Constable Mattinson or I were engaged operationally in any or of the relevant decision making in connection with this matter, other than our liaison with the IOPC. We will both bring fresh perspective and fresh eyes. Commissioner, your Accountability and Governance Board is an integral part of your role in the PCC public holding the force to account. Both myself and the Temporary Deputy Chief Constable will do our utmost to assist you in bringing transparency and candour to these matters for the benefit of the public that you and I serve. I know that the actions of our force have negatively impacted on the trust and confidence the public of the West Midlands have in us, and this is something of significant concern to me. Moving at pace during my first week, I've already met with a number of people, including many individuals from the local West Midlands Jewish communities and the Policing Minister. To all, I have again reiterated my apology for the damning impact of the events and had positive discussions on how, as a force, we will now strive to restore the trust and confidence of the public. Last week we relaunched Operation Strive, which will be the overarching policing response to coordinate the effective response to drive forward the action and changes needed. This will be a wide-ranging initiative and a number of work streams of activity are underway. A full and comprehensive action plan is now being developed for this and will be delivered by Temporary Deputy Chief Constable Mattinson. This work will focus on growing our cultural competence, ensuring open dialogue, building authentic connections, investing in community relationship and ensuring each and every member of our workforce is accountable and cognizant of the biases while being role models for equality. It's important to remind the public that we are a force that is performing extremely well. Our officers, staff and volunteers have collectively worked really hard to get West Midlands Police to the place it is today. as being one of the best in the country for responding to the public, reducing crime and bringing offenders to justice. This week we expect to see the latest release of national data, and this will reinforce just how well the force is doing. I have directed the workforce to focus their attention on continuing to improve our service to the public, striving to the very best we can and doing even more to protect the public, as this is rightly the service they deserve. This remains about us doing the right thing, aligned to the code of ethics, showing courage, respect and empathy, and providing the very best public we can without fear or service to the public. I am passionate about keeping the public safe. This is why I joined as a police officer 3 decades ago. I want to always be proud of the privileged position I hold as a serving officer, and I want each and every member of our workforce to feel that pride too. This only comes from knowing we're delivering a service that the public are proud of and that they have trust and confidence in. During the coming days and weeks, West Midlands Police will continue to rapidly progress a range of work under Operation Strive. We will continue to focus on protecting the public of the West Midlands and improving our services, and we've done relentlessly during the recent years. I look forward to providing you, Commissioner, and the public with regular updates on our successful progress of this. Thank you again for this opportunity to update you today. And Commissioner, I'll just hand over to the DCC who will open the paper, if that's okay.
Thank you. In view of time, can you please limit your comments to 5 minutes, please? That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Certainly. Morning, Commissioner. So the paper starts us off with a chronology that sets out the key meetings and milestones which occurred during the preparation of the policing operation for Aston Villa versus Macabi Tel Aviv. This became known as Operation Park Mill. On the 30th of August 2025, the fixture was announced, with kick-off scheduled for 8 p.m. on Thursday, the 6th of November. The timeline in the paper shows progress through the planning, with the appointment of key commanders, the creation of threat assessments and strategies, as well as the 3 Safety Advisory Group meetings, known as SAG meetings, which took place on the 7th, 16th and 24th of October last year. It was the SAG meeting held on the 16th of October which made the decision to reduce the away fan ticket allocation to 0. The paper then explains the role of the SAG, early actions taken by the force to plan and prepare for the fixture, before setting out how football fixtures are risk assessed. The Aston Villa versus Macabi Tel Aviv fixture was always assessed as high risk. The paper then outlines that our initial working assumption was that Macabi Tel Aviv supporters would attend the fixture, and goes on to detail the planning activity that was carried out, such as the annual leave embargo for the 6th of November, together with the contact with the Metropolitan Police to discuss coordination of the policing operation in relation to travelling fans. The paper then has detail of the Teams meeting, which took place on the 1st of October between the Force Bronze Commander and Dutch Police, and we accept that this meeting should have been recorded, with intelligence properly assessed and managed. We should also have made contact with police forces in other countries which had previously hosted matches involving Macabi Tel Aviv away fans. The paper moves on to describe the role of the UK Football Policing Unit and how the force worked with them in order to try and obtain further information to assist us with the planning. It then outlines some detail regarding community engagement, and we make an apology here that our engagement with the local Jewish community was not started early enough. The issue of the use of AI is then addressed, particularly with reference to the inclusion of a match between West Ham and Macabi Tel Aviv. This false detail was included in the SAG document dated the 23rd of October 2025. We have now begun a review into the force's use of and policy regarding AI, and the acting Chief Constable has blocked all access to Microsoft Copilot on force systems until further notice. The paper outlines the communication with the Home Office and the offer from them on the 17th of October of further funding to help accommodate away fans. The paper then details the commissioning of a peer review, which found that the decision to ban away fans was reasonable, but that the effectiveness of that decision had been reduced due to the high-profile commentary which had seen opposing positions becoming entrenched. The paper concludes by outlining that the policing requirement and the scale of the operation, had all away fans attended, was estimated at around £5 million. Then finally, we have outlined steps taken to re-establish the trust and confidence of the public, particularly the local Jewish community. This will now be known as Operation Strive, which will coordinate our response to recover from these events and rebuild the confidence of the public. I'm pleased to say that we have already implemented a decision for all anti-Semitic hate crime to be investigated by a detective, and have committed to force-wide anti-Semitism training and begun meeting with a range of stakeholders and faith groups to ensure that we implement learning from this operation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting Chief Constable and Temporary Deputy Chief Constable, for that opening. Much appreciated. So, we'll come to questions. Now, the West Midlands Police report that has been published and is available to everyone on my website makes some welcome concessions and does acknowledge some serious concerns and shortcomings, including evidence having been overstated, a failure to engage early enough with the local Jewish community. There should have been contact made with police forces in other countries. The meeting with the Dutch police on the 1st of October should have been recorded. A lack of adequate internal regulation relating to the use of AI. All of that is welcome, but there are many more issues, matters and questions that need to be put during the course of this session available to us this morning. So I will start with the build-up to the decision of the Birmingham SAG on the 16th of October 2025. Now, we're told that an elaborate command structure is established under the title Operation Park Mill. And that includes gold, silver, bronze commanders, experienced and accredited staff with thematic responsibilities, with the involvement of the Operation Planning Department. We're told that West Midlands Police has extensive institutional experience of planning and preparing for major events. The authorised professional practice was to be adhered to, with public order, public safety and POPs advisors having benefited from the College of Policing course, with mentoring and relevant continuing professional development. The National Decision Model, which sets out the College of Policing 10 principles of risk and 6 core principles of public order, is available to review and adjust to response and threat assessment. The National UK Football Policing Unit risk assessment matrix is to inform decision making. And yet, despite all of that elaborate structure, ultimately the system fails. And the purpose of today is to consider some of the reasons why it failed so catastrophically, from the commencement of the operation on the 1st of September 25, leading to the HMIC preliminary letter dated 14th of January 26. On the 2nd of September, one of the first actions that takes place is for West Midlands Police to request team information from the National Football Intelligence Partnership through the UK Football Policing Unit, and that appears to be a pack with the Macabi Tel Aviv team overview. What would that have consisted of? Was it received? Would it have included any intelligence about the team's fans and previous public order related matters? Was any regard had to this? And if not, why not?
Commissioner, thank you. It is common practice for European fixtures of this nature for those involved in the planning of it to seek intelligence from a variety of sources, which make specific reference to those teams. I'm conscious that this is the first question you've asked me, Commissioner, but the person that requested that is detailed within it. The flow of intelligence during this operation is likely, in my view, to form part of the IOPC investigation. It's important again to re-emphasise that in the search for both learning and transparency, it is me that on the first day made a voluntary referral. So it would probably be unwise of me to comment on what was in that documentation, how it was received and what happened to it. Firstly, because I don't know the answer to that, because I can't investigate what's happened myself, having done that referral. It's right for the IPC to do so. Secondly, I don't want to prejudice that investigation on behalf of the public.
The minutes of the very first Op Park Mill Gold on the 16th of September speaks of the Gold Commander having a low-risk appetite for a repeat of the disorder seen at the Aston Villa Leisure Warsaw match in 2024. Did this low-risk appetite and the experience of the Leisure Walsall match prompt West Midlands Police to become too risk-averse in its approach to the fixture? Are you satisfied as well that the Gold Commander had the relevant training experience for a policing operation of this complexity and scale?
Commissioner, I'll answer the second bit of that question first, if I may. All public order Gold Commanders involved in, they're called POPSs, Public Order, Public Safety. Gold Commanders are trained by the College of Policing. They are assessed at the conclusion of that course on whether they are occupationally competent. To move on to be operationally competent, they then need to shadow experienced Gold Commanders, then be assessed as Gold Commanders themselves, and move on from there. All of the substantive Assistant Chief Constables in this force and the temporary Deputy Chief Constable and I, in my former role, are all trained and accredited Gold Commanders. And of course, this force has significant experience of policing both high-profile football matches and European football matches. So I'm satisfied that both Gold Commanders involved in the events are trained and accredited. In relation to the Legia Walsall fixture, it's clear that we had significant disorder at that fixture. In relation to the comments of the Gold Commander that made those comments at the SAG meeting, again, it would be unwise and unfair of me to comment on, given the IOPC's investigation.
Was there any known suspected terrorist threat relating to the fixture? And if so, who was the target? And what was the suspected motivation of those involved? And what action, if any, was taken to identify and mitigate the threat?
Thank you, Commissioner. We are all aware within both the police service but also of members of the public that there is an underlying counter-terrorism threat throughout the UK to all major events. I can't comment in a public domain on the specifics of intelligence relating to counter-terrorism. More broadly, again, that will inform part of the decision-making that will be for those Gold Commanders to rationalise at some point in the future, both with the ongoing work of HMIC, but also it may be an area that HMIC consider when they look at the totality, the IPC consider when they look at the totality of the intelligence picture and flow.
Early intelligence reports include reference to local people arming themselves in preparation for the fixture. But what did West Midlands Police take that to mean in terms of scale, level of threat, and with what purpose were people arming themselves? Was the intelligence actionable? Was anything done to pursue further lines of inquiry to identify the source of this intelligence, identify them, investigate the threat, and consider any arrest and charges? And if not, why not?
Commissioner, thank you. I, like you and many others, have seen both appearance of West Midlands officers at the Home Affairs Committee, and that is a question that came up and was answered by the former Chief Constable. As I've said at the outset, and I do want to remind you, and particularly the members of the public present, it is my intention throughout both this board, Commissioner, and our subsequent approach to answer every question with as much transparency and candour as I can. And I want to again emphasise that it is on my first day that I did a voluntary referral to the IOPC. But I want their investigation to not be prejudiced in any way in the answers that I give today, and to comment on that risks doing so. And so therefore, Commissioner, I can't. The other reason, and it's important again to emphasise this, is the reason that I can't is because it would be unwise, unfair and wholly inappropriate for the temporary Deputy Chief Constable and I to start inquiring into those matters and asking individuals who may or may not be in the future subsequent subject to the IOPC investigation. That would be unfair and unwise to do so. It also risks prejudicing both them as individuals and, of course, the independence of the IOPC investigation, neither of which I want to do, because I want that to be transparent on behalf of the public. So I can't really comment on that further, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'm now going to turn to the HMIC letter dated 14th of January. I had no prior knowledge as to the contents of that letter. I first had sight of it on the 14th of January. It identifies what it refers to as concerns and shortcomings, and it's my intention to take you through each and every one of those concerns and shortcomings. The HMIC report states, and it's important that I record this, the report, the letter states, to be clear, I have found no evidence to support a view that anti-Semitism played any part in West Midlands Police stating that its preferred tactical option was to reduce to zero the ticket allocation to Macabi Tel Aviv fans. The HMIC letter also records, however, in respect of any individual officers, the evidence I have seen doesn't point to their actions having been influenced by political interference, anti-Semitism, or other lack of impartiality or malign intent. However, turning to the concerns and shortcomings, at page 3, the Chief Inspector's letter states, however, I am concerned that in some respects the force either didn't fully appreciate or its response didn't demonstrate that it appreciated the extent to which national and international context would lead to far-reaching consequences if the fixture and wider associated events were not policed effectively. I'm not convinced that the force fully considered the consequences of its preferred tactical option. It focused on reducing the risk of short-term disorder and long-term damage to local community relations due to the presence of Macabi Tel Aviv fans. It lacked the necessary foresight to recognise the long-term global consequences. Is that accepted? If not, why not? And what's being done at a systemic level to ensure that there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. So firstly, I also acknowledge the comments that the Chief Inspector has made, that he found no evidence that anti-Semitism had played a part in the preferred tactical option, nor the points about any individual acting in that way, and no evidence of malign intent. However, I will acknowledge and continue to acknowledge, as I did last Tuesday evening when I met with members of our Lowish Jewish community, that the impact of our actions has really damaged those relationships. So I don't want the force to be hiding behind those lines, because the impact of our actions has significantly damaged our relationships. And having spent the time listening to other people that very bravely shared their views with me, the impact of that was very clear. And I want to acknowledge that. In relation to the points that the Chief HMI makes in his letter, firstly, I accept the contents of it in its entirety, because it is about organisational failure. One of the things that you may ask us about later, but which I'm clear on, is we had not conducted a community impact assessment. Now, equality impact assessment. There is evidence within the documentation, both within the Gold Strategy, within the Silver Tactical Plan, and other documentation, where our duties under the Equality Act have been considered. But actually, a much broader equality impact assessment would have considered many of those issues and would have been perfectly preventable. And so one of the actions that we have already taken is, prior to the publication of this report, is to undertake an organisational learning route within our Ops department, and this will be part of it, to mandate in all these sets of circumstances that we undertake an equality impact assessment, because had we done so, it is much more likely, I can't say for certain, it is much more likely that we would have considered these impacts, both locally, nationally and internationally, and that is very clearly an organisational failure, which I take responsibility for ensuring that we fix.
Thank you, a matter to which I will return later. Again, at page 3, the Chief Inspector states, it's also clear that West Midlands Police sought and obtained additional information about other Macabi Tel Aviv fixtures, but I note that West Midlands Police spoke only to Dutch police. It appears that the force didn't speak to policing counterparts in other jurisdictions where Macabi Tel Aviv had more recently played European fixtures. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure that there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. Firstly, yes, it's accepted. So in the preparation of plans for all football matches, and particularly football matches of this risk level, we could, of course, should have spoken to as many of the host cities, host football clubs and host nations where Macabi Tel Aviv had played previously, and we didn't do so, so organisationally we accept that. Our liaison with European football clubs is through the UK Football Policing Unit, and outside of that we would go through the Foreign Office. I think it's clear that organisationally we didn't make enough attempts to do so. We are again building that into our response initially through an organisational learning review, but it will be one of the many strands under Operation Strive to ensure, firstly, it doesn't happen again, and secondly, we have already made the immediate change that all meetings online in this nature with law enforcement colleagues from other countries overseas will always be recorded, and we've already made that change.
At page 4, the Chief Inspector states, however, on 10th of October 25, the Westminster Police Gold Commander at that time wrote a letter to the Chair of the SAG. That letter contains some statements that are inaccurate. It also contains a lack of balance regarding the behaviour of different groups in Amsterdam. It appears that on 24th of October 25, the Silver Commander, with approval from the most senior level of the force, repeated these inaccurate statements in a written report to the SAG. That report also contains further inaccuracies. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure that there is no repetition?
Commissioner, I have accepted on behalf of West Midlands Police that organisationally the force overstated some of the evidence, as the HMIC has pointed out. Specifically in relation to that paragraph, I have made the decision to voluntarily refer some senior officers in the force to the IOPC, and it is in the public domain that you have referred the former Chief Constable. For those reasons, given the way that that paragraph is worded, I don't think it would be wise or fair on the transparency of the IOPC's investigation for me to comment further on that.
At page 4, the Chief Inspector states, the Force's 16th of October 25 oral briefing didn't repeat the inaccuracies of the 10th of October 25 letter, and it didn't include the same lack of balance. It also didn't introduce the further inaccuracies that appeared in the 24th of October 25 report, but those inaccuracies would of course have been in the Gold and Silver Commanders' minds when they decided to recommend the Force's preferred tactical option. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure there is no repetition?
I think one of the things that's clear, Commissioner, is our reporting to the Safety Advisory Group forms what's probably best described as Word documents. They're written documents. Firstly, they're not protectively marked as they should be. And it would seem, in my mind, and again, I re-emphasise the point that I have not inquired into these matters because it would be inappropriate to do so when there's an ongoing investigation. But information that's known to me today is that our reporting was not protectively marked and had not necessarily been produced as in either intelligence products or threat assessments and the opinions of the commanders. It's not clear what they are. And that was part of the exchange of letters that I had already had with the IOPC in my former role as a Deputy Chief Constable to inform them that we would be undertaking an organisational learning review to address those. The force position will change. We will be much clearer and much more prescriptive on the documentation that we share with safety advisory groups to understand that what's being used to inform them, what that chain of intelligence and or threat assessment that sits behind them, and that they're protectively marked. And of course, the HMIC position at the moment is this is an interim letter. It forms part of a broader review that they are doing of safety advisory groups across the country. We will build their findings into the work that we're underway to ensure that we are giving a much more clear and consistent view to safety advisory groups in the future.
At page 4, the Chief Inspector states, in this letter I conclude that there was an imbalance in the weight of evidence that West Midlands Police presented to the SAG in respect of the previous behaviour of Macabi Tel Aviv fans. I have formed the view that confirmation bias in relation to the anticipated behaviour of Macabi Tel Aviv fans and the potential disorder their presence might cause influenced both the content and strength of assessments West Midlands Police gave to the Safety Advisory Group. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure there is no repetition?
Commissioner, thank you. My answer is probably very similar to the last one. So, organisationally, I accept the overstating of the evidence, as the HMIC have pointed out. Part of the reason for accepting that is the HMIC have looked in detail at all the documentation and have spoken to all of the commanders involved in that. The Chief Inspector of Constabulary is very clear in his letter that he's not making a judgment on conduct, he's making organisational points, and I accept the organisational findings. Again, to address it, we've got work ongoing that will sit under Operation Strive to ensure that consistency of our input into safety advisory groups and other similar fora going forward. I won't comment on the individual officers that have prepared or made judgments because it would be unfair of me to do so.
At page 5, the Chief Inspector states, however, I am concerned about the accuracy of the written report that West Midlands Police gave the chair of the SAG for the meeting on the 24th of October 25. These inaccuracies included the following. The most recent match Macabi Tel Aviv played in the UK was against West Ham United in the UEFA Europa Conference League group stage on 9th of November 2023. The police response saw 5,000 officers deployed over a number of days. Over 200 of the 2,800 Israeli fans who travelled to the November 24 Ajax fixture were linked to the Israeli Defence Forces. The day before the Ajax fixture saw approximately 500 to 600 Maccabi fans apparently intentionally targeting Muslim communities. The 500 to 600 Maccabi fans tearing down Palestine flags. The 500 to 600 Maccabi fans committing serious assaults on Muslim taxi drivers. The 500 to 600 Maccabi fans throwing innocent members of the public into the river. Several Dutch police officers were injured during the sustained confrontation. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure that there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. In relation to point number 1, Macabi Tel Aviv against West Ham United, we know as a matter of fact that that match did not take place. We know, and the force have acknowledged, that that came from an AI hallucination. That formed firstly part of our referral to the IOPC, so that matter is now being investigated by them. The former Chief Constable brought that to the attention of the Home Affairs Committee in writing, and as you heard from the Temporary Deputy Chief Constable and is covered in the paper, once this information came to my attention in a level of detail, on my first day in office, I turned off our use of co-pilots. So like all big organisations, we're moving to the latest version of Windows, which includes a full suite of Microsoft services, part of which is Copilot. Whilst I can't comment more broadly on it because of the nature of the investigation, I have turned off access to it until further notice. In relation to the 5,000 officers, I think we've stated publicly on a few occasions that is the professional summary of one of the commanders involved, and I won't comment further on that. In relation to all of the other points then that the Chief Inspector makes, I would make a couple of observations. Firstly, we do know that there was disorder at that fixture. It is a matter of record. There is footage of it. There was disorder at the fixture. It will be in the future for others to account on their individual assessment of the intelligence, the things that we were told by the Dutch police. What I accept on behalf of West Midlands Police is the judgment of HMIC that we have overstated the evidence placed before us without expanding on those individuals' points. And that was subsequently shared with the Safety Advisory Group and others.
At page 6, the Chief Inspector states, also, the 10th of October 25 letter from the West Midlands Police Gold Commander to the chair of the SAG refers to Macabi Tel Aviv fans at the Ajax fixture setting fire to Palestinian flags. From our interview of the Dutch police and from a letter from the Mayor of Amsterdam to the city's municipal authority, we understand there was only one report of a person attempting to set fire to a single Palestinian flag. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. In terms of the systemic level, hopefully I've answered that in the way that we're going to be recording intelligence, particularly where we're meeting with law enforcement colleagues from overseas. I can't comment on what either the Dutch police or the Mayor of Amsterdam have said. That is a matter for them. And similarly, as I've said throughout this board meeting, given that we have done the voluntary referral to the IOPC and that they are now conducting an independent investigation, it will be for officers who may find themselves subject of the IOPC investigation to account for their actions. It would be unwise in terms of the transparency that the public require from that investigation for me to comment on it, and it would be unfair on the officers that are involved for me to comment on that bit further.
At page 6, the Chief Inspector states, my conclusion is similar to that of Lord Mann, who in his evidence to the Home Affairs Committee on 1st of December 25 said that the problem in Amsterdam had been greatly exaggerated. Regardless of any misunderstanding about what the Dutch police said, I have concluded that West Midlands Police overstated the extent to which the disorder at that fixture was attributable to the Macabi Tel Aviv supporters. All of this leads me to conclude that confirmation bias in relation to the behaviour of the Macabi Tel Aviv fans played a part in the way West Midlands Police reached its preferred tactical option and the strength with which it presented it to the SAG. In these circumstances, banning away supporters was a wholly exceptional decision. The recommendation to the SAG should have been subject to greater challenge and consideration within West Midlands Police. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. As I said in an earlier answer, the Chief HMI and his team have had access to lots of documentation and have had the opportunity to speak with the commanders involved. For reasons that I've set out, I have not done that. It would be unwise of me to do so. I have not seen anything to disagree with his comment that organisationally we overstated the evidence, nor have I seen anything to disagree that organisationally some of that judgment was informed by confirmation bias. And it is for those reasons that as part of Operation Strive we will be addressing all of those systemic failures, and as I said earlier, had we completed a comprehensive equality impact assessment, I think that would have given us the opportunity for some of those biases to be drawn out. We also have acknowledged, and the temporary Deputy Chief Constable concluded it covered it in her opening statement, I think had we had much earlier dialogue, both with you and your office, Commissioner, but also real and meaningful engagement and consultation with Jewish individuals and members of our Jewish community, that would have allowed the force to be challenged more, to think through the consequences of those decisions. You know, the lessons that we've got to learn from that is in events similar to this, where we're impacting on specific individuals and communities, that a quality impact assessment is an essential tool, together with that engagement, because it allows us to reflect on it, the impact that we're having, and then where we're making those decisions, because you know, we may still make decisions that impact on one group more than another, but it needs to be much more informed and much more considered.
At page 7, the Chief Inspector states, I have further concern about the way West Midlands Police handled intelligence material in respect of the written report that West Midlands Police gave the SAG on 24th of October 25. I have found that not all of the information and intelligence in the report had passed through the force's dedicated intelligence structure, and the intelligence bronze commander wasn't involved in the report's preparation. As a result, the force didn't properly validate all the material it subsequently relied on. This is of significant concern, given that the SAG intended to use it for a wholly new consideration of the risk. The chair of the SAG had asked that information made available to the SAG to be robust and capable of carrying the weight which may be placed on it. I'm especially concerned about the way Westminster Police handled sensitive intelligence when it created and disseminated the 24th of October 25 report. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure there is no repetition?
Firstly, Commissioner, organisationally, yes, it is accepted. It's perhaps worth just reminding us all, Commissioner, that West Midlands Police is 3 million people. We record about 900 crimes a day. We arrest circa 5,000 people a month. We were the force that exited engaged status faster than any in recorded history. The force is performing really well and has really robust and effective intelligence structures. What's clear is the link between public order policing, so football and sporting events and protests are public order policing. What's clear is organisationally that link between public order policing and intelligence and our intelligence systems is not where we want it to be. That is part of the work that is taking place under Operation Strive. It's part of an organisational learning review that we had already conducted. And whilst not commenting on the performance or conduct of individuals, because for reasons I've set out that would be unwise to do so, that greater linkage within the command structure with an intelligence bronze commander, that flow of information, they've had a very different outcome. So I do think it's important to emphasise that the force is effective in the way that it manages and handles intelligence, because it does it every single day in very complex and sensitive matters. But that link between public order policing, the impact on communities of decisions like this, and intelligence is something that the organisation needs to learn from.
At page 8, the Chief Inspector states, I've also found that there were further shortcomings in West Midlands Police's approach to planning for and responding to the Aston Villa Macabi Tel Aviv fixture. These shortcomings are in 4 fundamental areas: lack of effective local community engagement, imbalance in communications, poor record keeping and retention. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure that there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. So dealing with the first point, the lack of effective community engagement, I have accepted that organisationally. I accepted that in my first day in office. It's one of the many reasons why I issued an immediate public apology in my first day in office. And I repeat it again, being in this room with you, Commissioner, and with the Deputy Chief Constable Tuesday evening and last week, and listening to members of our local Jewish community on the impact that these events have had, the impact of our decision making, I'm absolutely clear that better local engagement from the very outset with both our local Jewish communities, but actually with a broader range of stakeholders, would have made a real difference. So I accept that, and that will be part of our learning for Operation Strive. Similarly then, the imbalance in communications is also therefore informed by that lack of communication, that lack of consultation. And had we done both of those things, we would have been able to communicate better. But actually the purpose, and it's worth re-emphasising, the purpose of the meeting that we had last Tuesday was not for me to communicate on behalf of the force, it was to listen. Communication is sometimes about listening. And you will recall, Commissioner, at the end of that meeting, whilst we received relatively positive feedback from the people that were present, one of the things that I was clear on is don't judge us on the words that we've said tonight, judge us on the actions that we take. And that's what I want the public to continue to do. And then the final thing is the record keeping and retention. I'm clear organisationally that there are things that we need to learn from and improve. It will form part of the comprehensive plan that will sit under Operation Strive. What I won't do is comment on the record keeping of individual officers involved in that process, because it wouldn't be fair for me to do so, given the ongoing IOPC investigation.
At page 10, the Chief Inspector states, given the wider context in which the fixture took place and the additional complexities that West Midlands Police was evidently aware of, I am concerned that the force didn't set up a sufficiently robust command structure during the planning phase. As I've set out, the consequences of not doing this led to shortcomings in intelligence handling, ineffective engagement with the local Jewish community, poor record keeping and an imbalance in the force's communications. The shortcomings in the command structure were also apparent in the force's decision not to declare a critical incident even after public concerns mounted. This is contrary to authorised professional practice. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure that there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. This is my professional judgment. I'll be careful on my choice of words. Is that my professional judgment is that the Chief HMI at that point is commenting on the effectiveness of the command structure when he uses the word shortcomings rather than the actual design of the command structure. So I won't comment on that in case that strays into the area that the IOPC subsequently pick up. Again, as somebody who was not involved in the command of the operation, I can't comment on the decision to or not to declare a critical incident. What I can say to you, Commissioner, and to the public that are present and watching online is on my first day in office, I declared our response to this matter a critical incident.
At page 10, the Chief Inspector states, declaring a critical incident may also have prompted the force to explore special grant funding at an earlier stage. It is clear that West Midlands Police initially considered a range of tactical options to mitigate the risks associated with travelling Macabi supporters, many of which were included in a report by Lord Mann. However, during the planning stage, certainty of such funding may have prevented the force from discounting the widest range of tactical options and allowed it to more fully explore the range of mitigations. Is that accepted? If not, why not? And what is being done at a systemic level to ensure that there is no repetition?
As I've said, Commissioner, I declared a critical incident on my first day in office, together with members of your office. I have been involved in many discussions with colleagues in the Home Office about special grants and special funding. My professional knowledge is it's quite complex. There are a number of hurdles to overcome to receive special funding. I don't know at this stage whether declaring a critical incident would have accessed that funding or not. I think that one is probably better for all of us to pause until the conclusion of the broader review that the HMI are undertaking in relation to safety advisory groups, because I do think it's an area of policy that needs thinking through about how forces might see access to that for significant events of this. So I don't really know what the answer to that one is yet, Commissioner. I think that is one that hopefully HMIC will comment on in more detail when they finalise their report.
At page 10, the Chief Inspector states, the evidence I've seen so far suggests that these shortcomings are symptomatic of a force not applying the necessary strategic oversight and not paying enough attention to important matters of detail, including at the most senior levels. These things are surprising. Senior officers told us that they had recognised the fixture's wider significance. However, I'm concerned about an apparent lack of foresight in respect of the predictable repercussions of a number of their decisions, including, but not limited to, the force's recommendation to reduce the ticket allocation to 0. In this respect and others, my view is that the force could and should have prepared more effectively. Is that accepted? If not, why not? What is being done at a systemic level to ensure there is no repetition?
Thank you, Commissioner. As you'll be aware, on my first day, I asked the IOPC to consider if there were any conduct matters for senior officers in this force. By that, I mean senior officers that sit under the direct control of me, which is chief officers, not including the former Chief Constable. You, Commissioner, as the appropriate authority for the former Chief Constable, did a voluntary referral to the IOPC. Given that is commentary about some of their involvement in this fixture, I think it would be wholly unwise in terms of the ability of the IOPC to conduct an investigation on behalf of the public, and it would be unfair on those officers for me to comment on it. They may or may not fall within the scope of that broader investigation the IPC are undertaking, but I think it's best until that investigation is concluded before I comment on that.
It's been widely asserted that the risks posed by those who wanted to target Macabi Tel Aviv fans and the team were the greater risk. It's been asserted that West Midlands Police downplayed this risk in its messaging to reduce the risk of increasing local tensions. Is that true? And would West Midlands Police continue to justify that, or would West Midlands Police accept that was a mistake?
I accept, on behalf of the organisation, Commissioner, that our engagement with communities, and particularly our Jewish community, should have been better and it should have taken place earlier. I also accept that some of our communications around this organisation was not in the right place. I actually can't comment on the broader question about the detailed intelligence question you've asked me, because I don't know the answer, nor have I inquired into it, nor would it be appropriate for me to do so, given the scope of the issues that the IPC will be looking at.
Is it reasonable to suggest that West Midlands Police was fixed on reducing the public safety risks associated with the fixture, which came from a variety of sources, and saw a ban on the attendance of away fans as a way to influence the only variable that they could meaningfully control, which was the absence of the away fans from the match?
I'll answer that in two parts, Commissioner. As I said earlier in the board, I have been a public order commander for many years across 4 different police forces, and in policing any football match where there is potential disorder, the challenge for all public order commanders is to identify those that cause a risk and to effectively police them. In relation to this fixture, it is clear that some of the intelligence picture organisationally was inaccurate. The motivation in decision making of the commanders involved will be a matter for them to address, both with HMIC and the IOPC as we go forward.
How will West Midlands Police ensure that it appropriately redacts intelligence material before it is shared with partnership groups such as safety advisory groups?
As I alluded to earlier, Commissioner, and actually prior to the publication of the HMIC report, the force had already acknowledged that some of the documentation that had gone to the Safety Advisory Group had not been protectively marked, and it had not flown through the intelligence structures. By putting that in place and forming part of that learning review, that review of those processes will allow to do both of those things and give a much clearer information to the readers of a document what both the source of it and the provenance of it is. And by putting it through the intelligence structures, it also ensures, back to your point, Commissioner, that it is suitably redacted and it is suitable for those that are reading it, and for example, that they're at the right vetting level to read the intelligence that's in front of them. And if not, if it's the subjective judgment of a commander informed by intelligence, we need to be clear which bits are fact and which bits are assumption.
What steps can be taken to reduce the risk of confirmation bias arising in the future?
I think the first one, Commissioner, hopefully is one that we have set out from the outset since the publication of the report, is to accept that it's taken place in the set circumstances, to add more discipline and rigour to the structures that inform that decision making, and to ensure the broader cultural competence of the organisation. So if I expand on the point that the Deputy made at the start. We're going to do bespoke training for all of our workforce on anti-Semitism because I think some of the organisational judgments in this indicate that that's a gap for the organisation. We need to continue to work through that, but also we need to systematically make some of those broader step changes that I've talked about. So, for example, a more detailed equality assessment in all of circumstances like this would actually add to the broader judgment and decision making of the force and allow us to challenge each other where that might take place.
I'm now going to turn to the meeting with the Dutch police on the 1st of October 2025 and the Ajax Macabi Tel Aviv fixture in November 2024. On the 1st of October, as part of the planning process, the head of the football unit, who was also one of the 3 bronze public order safety commanders, met with the gold, silver and bronze commanders from the Dutch police that had been responsible for the policing of the 24 Ajax Macabi Tel Aviv football match in Amsterdam via MS Teams. There are a number of problematic matters that arise from this meeting, and let me summarise my concerns. It states in the Op Park Mill Order of Events document, a meeting of this nature would normally be attended by the football unit. However, due to this being a unique event, it was the intention of the West Midlands Police that gold, silver and bronze commanders would attend. However, at the time, the silver commander was deployed abroad as head of delegation for another fixture, and the gold commander had other operational commitments. So only the bronze commander attends, who is also the head of the policing unit. Now, according to HMIC on 1st of October, it has not been able to establish exactly what the Dutch police said or how the West Midlands Police attendee interpreted it. That is because A, the meeting wasn't recorded, B, relevant documentation and interviewees' accounts vary, and C, the West Midlands Police attendee told us he made a handwritten record of the meeting, then converted it into an email, which we have reviewed, and then disposed of the handwritten record. So, we no longer have the contemporaneous notes because they were disposed of following the preparation of an email that was prepared 8 days after the meeting on the 9th of October. It said that email summarises the outcome of the meeting. However, the outcome of the meeting on the 1st of October was immediately briefed to the gold and silver commanders by the bronze commander following the meeting. The reason why the meeting on the 1st of October is important is because, according to the UK Football Policing Unit peer review, it is following the information arising from the meeting with the Dutch police on the 1st of October that the working assumption that was, up until then, that away fans will attend, now changes to a working assumption that there will be no away fans attending. It's referred to in the peer review report. This was a tipping point for the West Midlands Police Silver in respect of the intelligence picture that had been developing up to this point. The Dutch intelligence brief marks the shifting point in terms of assessing the threat. The intelligence from the meeting is assessed by commanders as highly relevant. This is the single largest West Midlands police operation in 2025. It has been assessed as high risk. But a key shifting point is to be based on this meeting and the record of the outcome of the meeting. I note that West Midlands Police now concede that this MS Teams meeting should have been recorded. I'd be interested to know whether that would be usual practice and that the information received from the Dutch police should have been appropriately assessed and managed through existing intelligence structures. Why did neither of these happen? What are West Midlands Police intending to do to ensure this does not happen again?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll take that one, if I may. I think, firstly, and you'll understand that I can't comment as to why those other commanders weren't in that meeting, and no doubt that will be looked into in future investigations. I think so I will start by saying it is not usual practice to record those meetings for European fixtures. But with hindsight, it is regrettable that on this occasion it wasn't recorded, and we have already put in place that they will now be recorded going forward. And in fact, this week we have got the UK FPU together with our intelligence teams and our football unit meeting to review practices and processes exactly like this in terms of how we record the gathering of the information from others and how we process that intelligence through the appropriate means.
However, there are other concerns. There's only one West Midlands police officer present. It had been intended there was going to be 3. And I believe that was potentially a problem. If the meeting had been attended by the football unit only in the usual way, how many West Midlands police officers or staff would have attended that meeting?
I think there was a desire, as you've articulated from some of the documents, for all 3 of those commanders, so the gold, silver and bronze commander, to attend that meeting. Rather than have multiple people in that meeting making records, I think looking ahead as to what we can learn from this, the best way to get an absolute record of what is said in those meetings is to have them recorded, as will be practice going forward.
HMIC say that the meeting was conducted in English. Do we know whether there were any language issues? Do we have any idea how long this meeting actually lasted?
So I'm not aware that there were any language issues. I can't categorically say that there weren't, but as in the document that we provided, that meeting was conducted in English. As to how long it went on for, I don't know. I think that would have to be something that no doubt will be asked of that bronze commander that was in the meeting.
So no one attends to assist with the taking of notes. And again, it seems to me that that is potentially a problem, because as well as conducting the meeting with 3 other people and presumably asking questions, the officer has to take a contemporaneous note at the same time. What would be the usual practice with a meeting such as this?
I think it would be normal for our silver commander or head of the football unit to meet and that they would have a verbal non-recorded conversation and take notes as they see appropriate in those circumstances. I think what we have learnt from this is that we need to ensure that we have much better record keeping of the information that is shared by our counterparts in other countries. We do have much better recording practices for non-European fixtures, so domestic football fixtures, and we need to learn from what we do in those scenarios to make sure that we're replicating robust processes when we're dealing with European fixtures as well.
There's no attempt to write to the Dutch police to confirm the outcome of the meeting, no attempt to agree a note or memorandum of the meeting, or ask the Dutch police to confirm their views in writing, notwithstanding the weight that is to be attached to the outcome of this meeting. Was that not a serious failing?
Commissioner, I'll answer that one. So, on behalf of the organisation, I accept the points that the HMIC have made in terms of the overstating of the evidence, and of course, with hindsight, there are lots of things that we would do differently with the intelligence flow. It would be, as I've said a few times, both be unwise and unfair on the officer involved in that conversation for us to give commentary today whilst there are a number of ongoing investigations. We want to be fair to the officers involved, but most importantly, we also want the public at the end of this to see the transparent reports from HMIC, from the IOPC, without us impacting on it or seen to be impacting on it, because it is not our intention. Our intention is to be as transparent and answer all of the questions, both today and going forward, with as much candour as we can do.
As is referred to in the HMIC letter, the importance of record keeping is explained in several parts of the College of Policing's authorised professional practice. And I've had cause to raise this issue with the former Chief Constable, albeit in a different context. But it did concern another high-profile case. It's also been referenced in joint internal audits. And I want to read from a letter that I sent to the former Chief Constable on this matter back on the 13th of August 2025. And on the subject of record keeping, I wrote to the former Chief Constable, "Finally, in view of there being multiple findings within the IOPC review determination of failings in relation to record keeping in connection with accounts provided by officers and decision making regarding safeguarding decisions and bail conditions, the Chief Constable should remind all police officers and staff of the utmost importance of effective and thorough record keeping for the benefit of victims, the investigation of crime, West Midlands Police, and for police officers and staff themselves." The former Chief Constable replied to me saying, "Record keeping. The requirement to ensure adequate and accurate record keeping by officers and staff reflects a legal duty and responsibility. The College of Policing has produced authorised professional practice, and codes of practice are in place to ensure officers understand their duties and responsibilities in this area." Are you actually satisfied that officers do understand their duties and responsibilities in this area and are cognisant of the authorised professional practice?
I don't recall, I don't think the former Chief Constable shared that letter with me, nor his reply, Commissioner, albeit he may well have done so. I've obviously not seen it prior to today. I think broadly the answer to that question would be yes. We prosecute lots and lots of people that need to be prosecuting. We secure justice for lots of our victims of crime. And as I said in the outset, this force, across a range of metrics, is performing really well. We exited from engaged status faster than the others. We have gone from arresting around 50 or 60 people a day to close to 200 every day. Our outcome rates for detected crime has seen a significant rise. All of that is based on the actions of our officers on the front line, all of whom I'm really proud of. And in order to be effective, they do and keep records and record evidence to the best of their ability. That said, I absolutely accept that in the matters that we're discussing today, organisationally, our record keeping is not where it needs to be. And whilst I won't comment on the conduct of any of the officers involved, because it wouldn't be right for me to do so, I absolutely accept that some of the matters that should have been recorded we don't have sufficient audit of, and I wish we did have, so that one, we could articulate that better, but secondly, it would show the trail upon which our decisions were made.
Because surely this needed to be the best possible version of the outcome of this meeting that there could possibly be, particularly because this was an overseas force that you would not have had a pre-existing or ongoing relationship with. But unfortunately, that did not happen on this occasion. And given the importance of this meeting, does West Midlands Police accept that more should have been done to absolutely verify its accuracy in view of the weight that was due to be placed on the information obtained at this meeting? And, for instance, when it became clear that Dutch police information was the tipping point that could lead to a non-away fans decision, why was a written account of the intelligence and the policing response not sought from the Dutch police?
I accept and have done both both throughout the board, Commissioner, but also since the publication of the letter from the HMI to the Home Secretary, and the position became much clearer. I absolutely accept that our record-keeping organisationally in these matters is not where it needs to be. As we outlined earlier, we have already taken the decision that meetings of this nature with European law enforcement colleagues will always be recorded. In relation to the steps that were taken by individuals in relation to these events, it would be unwise of me to do so for reasons that I've set out so far. Oh, sorry, Commissioner. Sorry, well, one final point is I also accept organisationally that all of this information should have flowed through our intelligence structures, being graded and assessed, because that would have informed those reading it, the evaluation that we were putting on the information that we'd received.
Both the policing minister and I wrote to the former Chief Constable seeking confirmation as to the accuracy, credibility, reliability and provenance of the intelligence received by West Midlands Police from the Dutch police. The Chief Constable wrote to the policing minister, and the ACC Gold Commander wrote to myself, stating that the Chief Constable was satisfied as to the reliability of the intelligence received from the Dutch police. Do I understand it that West Midlands Police no longer stands by this assessment of the intelligence?
So I accept the points that have been made in the HMIC report that we have overstated the evidence more broadly. As I have said throughout, both the temporary Deputy Chief Constable and I were not involved in the command structure of this event. We weren't involved in the decision making in terms of the planning and our subsequent responses. So I can't comment on that, Commissioner, because I simply don't know the answer to that question. And as I've said throughout, one of the things that we have been clear on is it would be wholly inappropriate for us to start A, investigating, or B, asking those officers who may form part of the scope of the IOPC investigation. They would not expect us to do it, you wouldn't expect us to do it, and more importantly, the public wouldn't expect us to do it, because we're not independent, because we're officers of this force, which is why I did the voluntary referral for them to do so. So I don't know the answer, and nor have I asked it, nor is it my intention to ask. I'll wait the findings of the IOPC, HMIC, and Home Affairs Committee like everybody else.
Some intelligence was clearly provided by the Dutch police verbally in the meeting, but what information was provided that enabled West Midlands Police to assess the reliability of that intelligence, or was it simply based on an interpretation or understanding of what the Dutch police officers had said?
As I say, Commissioner, I wasn't at the meeting. It wasn't recorded. Organisationally, I accept our record keeping throughout this process is not where it needs to be. So I can't comment on the reliability or otherwise. I think the former Chief Constable was very clear to the Home Affairs Committee on a couple of occasions on his view of that account. I can't comment. I've not spoken to that officer about it, and it would be unfair and unwise of me to do so.
West Midlands Police now accepts that it could have contacted police forces in other countries which had previously hosted matches involving Macabi Tel Aviv away fans. But why was that not done? What would West Midlands Police's usual practice be? If usual best practice was not followed, why was this the case? Was this an example of what the HMIC referred to as confirmation bias?
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't know whether it is from that HMIC have drawn their conclusion regarding confirmation bias. As you set out in your introduction, this is an interim update letter to the Home Secretary. That broader review of safety advisory groups will still consider the role of West Midlands Police in this, and actually our more broader work with safety advisory groups. And that may well emerge from them. What I can tell you is that with immediate effect, when matches like this take place, we will be contacting all European law enforcement agencies where teams have played across Europe, and we'll be ensuring that they're recorded. If it's outside of the jurisdiction of the UK FPU, then we'll do similarly via the Foreign Office and make those requests.
The UK Football Policing Unit describes not speaking with Israeli police as a missed opportunity. Should more have been done to engage with the Israeli police? While you've described efforts to engage which did not meet with a response, could this have been escalated via the Israeli embassy?
So if I comment more broadly on the organisation, is this right for me to do so? I think it is clear that organisationally we should have consulted as broadly as possible with all of those law enforcement colleagues across both Europe and including Israel to get a broader assessment of the club, its fan base, those that may or may not have been involved in disorder, and as I've said, in the future we will be doing that for all European fixtures, where we have teams visiting Birmingham at this stage to play Aston Villa. I can't comment on the decision making of the others involved in this command structure at the time. It will be for them to account for in future inquiries.
It would appear that Israel does not have a national football information point, as most, if not all, European countries do. However, this does not appear to be established until the 7th of October, the day of the first Safety Advisory Group. Why was this and an alternative means of obtaining relevant information from Israeli police not established earlier in view of it being good practice? Was there a pre-visit by the Israeli police to the host Euro team? Is this something that needs to be addressed at UEFA level?
Again, in relation to why those actions didn't take place, I don't know. I've not inquired into doing so. It would be unwise for me to do so. One of the things that will fall out of this within policing is that there is going to be a debrief by the UK Football Policing Unit, which is led individually by the NPCC lead for the policing football is the Chief Constable of Cheshire. We will, of course, support that review, and I don't know the answer, but will be guided by that Chief Constable. Whether that is the right route for policing in the UK to address that is via UEFA, whether it's via the UK Football Policing Unit or whether it's via the Foreign Office. I don't know the answer to that, but what's clear is it needs to form part of that review, Commissioner.
I'm now going to move on to the hallucinatory AI-induced 2023 West Ham fixture. It was HMIC FRS, not West Midlands Police, that found the fictitious West Ham match was the product of the AI tool Copilot. Does West Midlands Police accept that this is illustrative of a failure to ensure that there was adequate oversight and management of the use of AI within West Midlands Police?
Commissioner, in relation to the referral that we made to the IOPC on my first day in office, we were very specific about how AI was being used, how it had been authorised, who was using it, and what steps had been taken. That was not part of a broader referral, it was a very specific one. So for those reasons of absolute transparency, I cannot comment today on the use of AI in any detail whatsoever, because that will form part of the work that is being considered between the IOPC and our own professional standards department as a result of things that are known to me today. What I can say, as what I said in the outset, is on my first day in office, I took the immediate step to turn off access to Microsoft Copilot within the force. Like everybody else, we will be using AI in the future. We will use Microsoft Copilot, but we are not going to do so until I'm satisfied with the conclusion of what's happened in this case and until we've got broader policy and guidelines in place.
Given the importance of ensuring the effective, lawful and responsible use of AI tools in policing, how was it that apparently members of the senior leadership team within West Midlands Police didn't know that Copilot was routinely being used by Force Intelligence?
Commissioner, I want to publicly acknowledge, because it's really important what I said at the outset, that your accountability and governance board is a really important part of your role as our democratically elected police and crime commissioner to hold the force to account. And I understand and appreciate both the value and the importance of the questions. And I hope nobody listening, including you, thinks I'm being deliberately obtrusive in my answers to these questions. I re-emphasise what I said at the start, which is the temporary Deputy Chief Constable and I want to approach this with candour, with transparency, and continue with our stated position of apologising to the public that we did at the start. But for the reasons I've articulated, I can't answer any of the questions on AI today because I don't want to prejudice anything that is ongoing.
But notwithstanding the confusion relating to the AI intelligence, what weight was actually placed on the intelligence relating to the West Ham match? Did it make any difference to the risk assessment and policing options?
Again, I don't know the answer to that in detail because I wasn't part of the command structure, nor have I asked. But all information and intelligence that forms part of the planning of a football match should inform it. So my professional view as somebody who's been an experienced public order commander is it will have formed some part of the judgment. It will be for those involved in the command structure to answer how much or not it formed part of their subsequent judgments.
Since the hallucinated information concerned a West Ham fixture, why was there not a liaison with the Met Police to seek intelligence about the fixture and its policing? Because surely, just as the Amsterdam match was seen as highly relevant, this should also have been a highly relevant inquiry, given that it was a recently relevant fixture in the UK, as recent as November 2023, only some 2 years previous, particularly given that on the face of the AI-generated intelligence, there had apparently not been any difficulties arising from the behaviour of the away fans at that match. Is that failure to inquire further another example of confirmation bias?
The points that I again can confirm, Commissioner, is West Midlands Police in the planning of fixtures of this nature should engage with as many clubs and therefore police forces if it's in England and Wales, law enforcement agencies if it's outside of that, to seek an assessment of the fixture to understand what the policing was like and ensure that those meetings are properly recorded, properly auditable, and the information that comes from it flows into the intelligence system. For reasons I've set out, I won't comment today on the use of AI and in relation to is it evidence of further confirmation bias. I think that will be a matter for those commanders that are involved to talk about the provenance of that intelligence, how they considered it, and what that meant to their decision making.
What confidence does West Midlands Police have that there are no other AI-induced hallucinations that have influenced operational decisions beyond this fixture and football policing? What action and due diligence is West Midlands Police implementing to proactively check this?
Thank you, Commissioner. So the starting point was to stop the use of AI and turn Copilot off until we've got clarity on what's happened on this occasion, so we've put the right policy and procedures in place and got greater governance and oversight over it. It's part of the work that will take place under Operation Strive. There are many reasons why I will be personally the gold for it and the deputy will personally be the silver for it. It's because, of course, the important part of Operation Strive will be restoring the confidence that the public have in us. But there are so many work streams that will sit under it. It's right and proper for us to personally lead it. And the use of AI in intelligence will form part of that ongoing work and learning to make sure we get it right whilst not cutting across any of the work that particularly the IOPC are undertaking.
I'm now going to turn to the information and intelligence and relevant matters relating to the Safety Advisory Group on the 24th of October 25. On the 17th of October, the same day that matters have become a focus of national and international interest, there is an official transfer of Gold Command due to the then Gold Command being on a period of leave. Surely this was the very worst possible time for there to be a transfer of the Gold Command. Would it not been better to have had continuity in the command structure at that time, at a critical time in the planning a new Gold Commander has to step up, having not been part of the preparation and planning process up until that date. Surely this is not going to be conducive to facilitating the effective and efficient managing of this high-profile policing operation.
Thank you, Commissioner. My understanding is the first Gold Commander that was involved in that decision when those matters changed, particularly as a result of the Safety Advisory Group and, of course, the comments from the Prime Minister, was on annual leave and overseas, and it needed a Gold Command to be in place to address those issues, and that was the rationale for the decision making.
Macabi Tel Aviv announced on the 20th of October that it would not accept away fans' tickets. Given this announcement, why was a further SAG with a remit to reconsider the decision dated 16th of October convened on the 24th of October? Because even if the SAG had revised its decision and decided to allow away fans, at that stage they were not attending anyway. So what was the purpose of the SAG on 24th of October? As far as the attendance of the fans was concerned, had it not become academic?
Thank you, Commissioner. You'll be aware, obviously, we don't chair or run the Safety Advisory Group. It is Birmingham City Council. I don't know, it's not known to me today who requested that, whether it was West Midlands Police that requested it or whether it was Birmingham City Council. So I don't know the answer to that, I'm afraid, Commissioner.
At the SAG meeting on the 16th of October, was the decision to ban away fans an agreed decision, or was there any disagreement or opposition from anyone else on the SAG?
I base this answer, Commissioner, on what is known to me from information that's in the public domain. As I've said throughout our answers today, we have deliberately not inquired into the matters because it would have been inappropriate to do so. As far as I'm aware, from information that is already in the public domain, it was the unanimous view of the Safety Advisory Group to reach that conclusion.
And equally at the SAG meeting on the 24th of October, was the decision to ban away fans an agreed decision, or was there any disagreement or opposition from anyone else on the SAG?
In fact, Commissioner, just to be clear on my answers, my knowledge is based on what's in the public domain about the conclusions that the Safety Advisory Group reached at their meetings. So I can't comment on the intricacies of them. I wasn't there, I've not reviewed the gold minutes, I've not viewed the footage of them, and I've not discussed it with anybody that was present. My broad understanding is that the Safety Advisory Group was in agreement, but I don't know the dates, I've not inquired into it, nor should I have done so.
Would you accept that at a SAG, other members of the SAG are, to a significant extent, reliant on the police's summary of police-held intelligence and the police's assessment of risk, all things being equal?
I don't think I've been in a position to accept that today, Commissioner. The reason I say that is, as I said earlier, I've been a public order gold commander across 4 different police forces. 3 of those are metropolitan police forces, each with many local authorities. Each local authority across the country has their own Safety Advisory Group structures. They are very different. The level of influence around them is different. The chair is different. The membership is different across the country. And it is my professional view that that is one of the many reasons why the HMIC, as part of this work, are doing a broader review of Safety Advisory Groups to inform the learning that comes from this event. I think in this set of circumstances, it is reasonable, I think, for any of us to articulate that the voice of the police and West Midlands Police at that Safety Advisory Group would have been influential.
There's reference to the usual practice being that SAGs proceed on the basis of verbal briefings. Is that the case? And if so, is that not a rather casual basis on which to proceed at meetings of this sort, in connection with which quite significant matters might be under consideration? Surely it would be better for written briefings to be provided. Now, I appreciate that the SAG does have a written report from the Gold Commander on the 16th of October, and there is a written report on the 24th of October. But that appears not to be the norm. Would it not be preferable for there always to be written reports?
I suppose I'll answer that in two parts, Commissioner. The first one in relation to the SAG that we're talking about today, so the Birmingham City Council Safety Advisory Group. It is a matter for initially Birmingham City Council to form a view on how they run and chair that meeting. That said, we're an important member of it, so we should share our view. As I said earlier, I think this is one of the many reasons why HMIC are reviewing safety advisory groups. More broadly, though, my professional view, if I was a consultee during the HMIC review, I think that SAGs would benefit from a more standardised terms of reference, arguably a statutory footing, but also consistency in approach, record keeping, reporting, and so on. I think all of those things, we would all collectively look at the events today, which is, not me directing any criticism at this safety advisory group or any others, but I think we would all collectively recognise that it would be a step forward for them to have terms of reference that are standardised across the country, which includes record keeping.
The HMIC FRS report is critical of intelligence briefings provided to the SAG on the 24th of October. And it says that it repeated previous inaccuracies and added new ones. It says the briefing was approved by what the Chief Inspector refers to as the most senior level of the force. There are questions to be asked concerning the role that the former Chief Constable had in the preparation or approval of the intelligence briefing for the SAG on the 24th of October. What the role of a Chief Constable would normally be in these circumstances, what materials or resources were available to the Chief Constable to test the intelligence summary. There are questions to be asked regarding the process via which the briefing for the SAG on 24th of October was signed off. Why was it that the intelligence briefing was not cleared by the intelligence bronze, and whether this would usually happen? Do West Midlands Police want to offer any comment or response to any of these questions?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think the quick answer is no. I think it would be unwise for me to comment. I am aware, Commissioner, because it is obviously in the public domain, that you have done a referral to the IOPC in relation to the former Chief Constable and his involvement or not in these matters, and it would be unfair on the former Chief Constable and unwise to the public for me to comment on those matters.
And in view of my referral of the former Chief Constable to the IOPC, I do not intend to press you for any further comment or response. However, are you satisfied that the briefing presented at the SAG on 24th of October could genuinely be described as the basis for a wholly fresh consideration of the issue, as was the intention of the Chair of the SAG?
I think, Commissioner, given all of the matters that we've already discussed today and the acknowledged use of AI and some flaws in the products that we have produced, I don't think I would be in a point at all to say on behalf of the organisation that all of the documents that we presented to the Safety Advisory Group were 100% accurate.
And in terms of a follow-up to that, was the SAG in a position, therefore, to provide a fresh consideration of the issues in view of the inaccuracies, the errors and exaggerations that HMIC FRS found in the West Midlands Police briefing?
Thank you, Commissioner. As I say, I wasn't at the first SAG or the one on the 17th. I wasn't at the one on the 24th. I've not seen the minutes. I've not watched the footage. So I can't comment on what was considered at one versus the other, and I've not inquired into them. So I don't know whether it was in a position to make fresh considerations, but I do accept the points that I've made earlier about the quality of our information and intelligence.
After the Prime Minister's intervention on the 16th of October and the public interest this resulted in, To what extent do you think West Midlands Police became increasingly focused on justifying its recommendations to the SAG on the 24th of October, rather than critically assessing and scrutinising them, particularly given the errors, inaccuracies and exaggerations that have been identified? Was this perhaps an example of the defensiveness that you yourself, Acting Chief Constable, have referred to when providing your apology statement last week?
Thank you, Commissioner. Firstly, I absolutely recognise the importance on behalf of all of us for politicians and politicians at the most senior levels to be able to make the points that the Prime Minister made, and I don't take any view on that. It's really important on behalf of all of us that our elected leaders can make the points that they seek to do so. I'll answer the second part of the question, Commissioner, by saying I think the totality of the West Midlands Police approach has failings within it, which is why I have apologised for the impact on it. I can see, like everybody else, the conclusions that the HMIC have reached so far. In relation to the actions that the force and those involved in the command structure took after that date and up until arguably the 14th of January will over time be a matter for them to explain their own actions. What I was clear on from my first day in office is there are things that organisation that we had got wrong. We had clearly impacted on the public, the confidence that the public have on us, which is part of the matters that I have apologised for. Sought to seek the views of the community. The public impacted on particularly members of our Jewish community, which is why the invite actually to meet with them went out before I took up my first day in office after you had appointed me on the Friday. And there are failings, and I am absolutely determined that we will learn from them and overcome the matters that we faced here.
Given the level of public interest, why did West Midlands Police not give more attention to ensuring the robustness of the intelligence relied upon to date and the accuracy of the report for the 24th of October SAG?
Thank you, Commissioner. As I've said from the outset, I think organisationally, I think some of our record keeping could have been better. Our use of intelligence structures could have been better, and the flow of that information through it would have been better. I think organisationally, I think the HMIC will provide further commentary on that, would be my professional assessment, as they do their broader review of these matters and safety advisory groups, irrespective of the conclusions that the IOPC reach about whether there are any conduct matters for individuals or not. My assurance to you and the public is that we will learn from those things and we will fix them irrespective of the outcome of any of those reports.
The former Chief Constable has suggested that some of the debate concerning the intelligence assessments was more about nuance than inaccuracy. Is it not the case that every nuance described was in the direction of amplifying the risk that the Macabi Tel Aviv fans presented? Was this not a pattern of exaggeration and an example of what the Chief Inspector refers to as confirmation bias?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think for reasons that you understand and I articulated earlier, I won't comment on the comments of the former Chief Constable. I think I would answer that more broadly by saying I accept that the force's position has overstated the evidence that it presented. An example of that being the force presented evidence in relation to a football match that didn't take place.
Had the resources available to West Midlands Police played a role in the decision-making of West Midlands Police in reaching its recommendation to the SAG on the 16th of October? If so, what was that consideration?
As I've said, Commissioner, I've not inquired into the rationale and decision-making of the commanders involved, but what is clear is from information that's already in the public domain is that that did form part of the force's judgment. After the Prime Minister's intervention on the 16th of October and the discussions with
the Home Office and the offer of additional resources, what was the position of Westminster Police as far as working with government to secure the attendance of the away fans? And if Macabi Tel Aviv fans had decided to attend, what would the policing operation look like? What action was taken to consider mounting such an operation? And was that something that was capable of being achieved?
Thank you, Commissioner. So I think on the Thursday, the 16th, when the SAG made that decision, that there would be no away fans. It was only the following day, Friday the 17th, when there were those conversations between the force and the Home Office that talked about extra funding and therefore resources becoming available. Rapidly that day, there was a piece of work conducted by 6 o'clock on Friday the 17th of October that drafted out what a potential operation may look like if away fans were to be accommodated at the fixture. That was in the cost of circa £5 million. But actually, by the Monday, we were in the position that Macabi Tel Aviv said they would decline tickets anyway. So that became a pretty academic point at that position in time. So that just lays out sort of the rapid changing picture that we faced over that weekend. But should fans have been accommodated from Macabi Tel Aviv, we were estimating a 3 to 4 day operation that would have cost £5 million.
After the Prime Minister's intervention on the 16th of October, Westminster Police commissioned a review by the UK Football Policing Unit on the 20th of October. That review refers to the first SAG on the 7th of October that resulted in a starting position that there will be no away fans at the match. The collective decision was that the safest option was to have no away supporters attend. It stated the police position was that this was a preference. Amongst other matters, the review stated that it was the belief of the review team that the intel picture was sufficient to justify a risk grading of high. At the SAG on the 7th of October, the position had been accurately and openly conveyed to the partnership, who reached a reasonable decision based on the likely behaviour of away supporters. What was the impact of this peer review report on Westminster Police's assessment of whether it had made the correct decision or not? Did the UK Football Policing Unit review provide Westminster Police with increased confidence in its decisions to date, validate its position and lead to an insufficiently robust approach to continuing to evaluate the intelligence assessment?
Thank you, Commissioner. I've never read the UK FPU report because, as I've said, I was not involved in the policing of this fixture. What I would say is that some of the intelligence that we will have doubtless shared with the UK FPU would have included reference to the West Ham versus Macabi Tel Aviv fixture, which didn't take place. It would have also included intelligence based on our conversations with the Dutch police, which, as we've said throughout, wasn't recorded. The fixture was recorded as high risk from the start using a well-known, tried and tested risk assessment matrix. It remained high risk throughout and would have done so irrespective of that. But I think it is fair to say that the information that we provided to the UK FPU, on which they then will have assessed our policing response, must have also included the West Ham versus Macabi Tel Aviv fixture, which didn't exist. So some of the information that we provided must have included intelligence that we now know was not accurate. I don't know this, again, just to emphasise, I was not involved in the command structure, but I think for all of us, it is a reasonable assumption to make that it would have strengthened the force's position to think, well, arguably the force is on the right thing, and I think that's taken together. I don't mean the UK FPU in this, but I think it adds to the confirmation bias that the force would have been drifting towards, because it's somebody independent telling the force it was right. So I'm not making a judgment about the conduct of the individual officers involved in receiving that information, nor am I making any comment at all on the UK FPU or the peers involved in that, because they came at request to help the force out. But I think the points you make are fair ones, Commissioner.
Although the peer review appears to address the SAG meeting on the 7th of October, it doesn't appear to address the SAG meeting on the 16th of October. I'm assuming you aren't able to assist with that if you've not actually had a look at the peer review report yourself. But I mean, I would be interested why that is. After all, that was the decision that was now under question. And the UK Football Policing Unit peer review references the 7th of October, but then doesn't seem to go on and analyse the approach taken on the 16th of October. And bearing in mind that that was then the decision under challenge, it seems curious that it didn't do that.
You're right, Commissioner. I've not read it. I've never received the report. But as I said at the outset, firstly, I want to approach this with both transparency and candour, but also I do look forward, Commissioner, to be able to come back here in the future to your Accountability Governance Board to give you the answers to those questions and, most importantly, the public. And I commit to continue and do so. And when we are in a position where those other inquiries are finished and completed and we're able to talk about it in more detail, my assurance to both you and the public is that we will, of course, come back and answer those questions that we're not able to do so today.
On Monday the 20th of October, as we've already discussed, and following indeed disorder at a match in Tel Aviv at the weekend, Macabi Tel Aviv announced that it would not accept away tickets for the fixture even if they were offered. And this in part reduced the risks and complexity associated with the fixture, but of course other risks and challenges had arisen as a result of the match then becoming far more high profile in any event. But was West Midlands Police in any way aware of or consulted about that decision by the Macabi Tel Aviv club around deciding not to take its away fan allocation before it was announced by the club at all?
I don't know, Commissioner, is the honest answer to that. Like you and everybody else, I'm aware that they declined it. I can't actually recall whether it was in the public domain or whether somebody in the force knew. I simply don't know the answer to that, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
What impact did that announcement have on West Midlands Police's planning? Did this announcement lead West Midlands Police to be less rigorous in the approach to the intelligence assessment and decision making when preparing for the SAG on the 24th of October, knowing as they then did that the outcome of the SAG on the 24th of October had then effectively been rendered academic because the club had said it wasn't going to be taking up its allocation of away fan tickets anyway?
As I have repeated, having not been involved in the command structure, not being at the safety advisory groups, I don't know what impact that will have had. Of course, it had the opportunity to change the risk. What was clear throughout, though, is that the fixture, irrespective of the attendance of Macabi Tel Aviv fans, remained high risk, but it will be for others to comment on that as the other things I've talked about progress.
According to a timeline that I've seen, on the 20th of October 2025, the UK Football Policing Unit provided West Midlands Police with an Ajax Macabi post-match report detailing groups involved, numbers and key incidents that occurred before, during and after the match. This appears to be highly relevant. Why was the UK Football Policing Unit only sharing that report at that stage? And what did it say?
Commissioner, I don't know what it said. I've not received it or read it, having not been involved in the command structure, and I think UK FPU would have to answer the date on which they shared the report, what the rationale for it was.
And was that report then checked and cross-referenced with the record of the meeting with the Dutch police on the 1st of October and other intelligence? And if so, with what outcome? If not, then why not? Was it incorporated into the report for the SAG on the 24th of October? If not, why not?
Commissioner, I think, as you'll be aware, one of the key points in the terms of reference that we've had so far for the IPC investigation is the content of the SAG meeting, and the information that the force provided to the SAG meeting specifically is called out the SAG on the 24th of October. So I think some of the matters and questions that you're understandably raising are matters that the UK FPU will be able to answer in time. But I don't think we can say any more around what was done with the information and intelligence that was shared with the force or that we shared with the SAG meeting on the 24th of October, so as not to prejudice that independent IOPC investigation.
However, on the 21st of October 2025, the UK Football Policing Unit shared with West Midlands Police a mayoral report dated 11th of November 2024 from the Mayor of Amsterdam regarding events of Ajax Macabi. Again, this appears to be highly relevant. Why is the UK Football Policing Unit only sharing that report at that stage? And what did it say?
So again, it's not, I don't think, for us to answer why UK FPU only shared information with us at different points. So I don't think that we're in a position to be able to add any more in terms of answering that question today.
But I have to put this follow-up question as I did in relation to the previous report shared on the 20th of October. So the mayoral report that was shared on the 21st of October, was that report then checked and cross-referenced with the record of the meeting with the Dutch police on the 1st of October and other intelligence? And if so, with what outcome? If not, then why not? Was it incorporated into the report for the SAG on the 24th of October? If not, why not?
So the information that we had was briefed into the SAG, but the extent and the fullness of that I can't comment on. As the Acting Chief Constable has said, we haven't been part of that command structure, and there will be an appropriate time for those that have to answer the details of those questions as to exactly what they shared, in what way they shared it, and any decisions as to what may not have been shared with the SAG on the 24th of October.
At what point were West Midlands Police aware of the Dutch Inspectorate and Justice report? Was this a report that West Midlands Police became aware of as a consequence of its own research, or was it brought to the attention of West Midlands Police from other sources? If not, then why not? Was that report then checked and cross-referenced with the record of the meeting with the Dutch police on the 1st of October and other intelligence, and if so, with what outcome?
Commissioner, I think I'm just going to have to refer, unfortunately, to previous answers about this is going into the detail of what was shared or wasn't shared for the SAG on the 24th of October, which, as you will be aware, is one of the specific terms of reference for the IOPC independent investigation.
I'm now going to turn to the attendance of the Macabi Tel Aviv ultras. At the Home Affairs Committee on the 1st of December 2025, Lord Mann gave evidence that by 16th of October 2025, it was known that the Macabi Tel Aviv ultras would not attend the fixture. He said the Macabi ultras, the so-called fanatics, were not coming. My Accountability and Governance Board report request follows up that issue. It's recorded at paragraph 30 of the report, and the question was, did Lord Mann or anyone else convey this intelligence to West Midlands Police, the UK Football Policing Unit, or any other body at any point prior to the Home Affairs Committee hearing on the 1st of December 2025? At paragraph 30.1 of the report, it is stated, it was always our planning assumption that the away fans travelling to the UK would include the subsection referred to as the Ultras. On the 20th of October 2025, Macabi Tel Aviv formally announced on their website they would not accept any away ticket allocation. Page 6 of the UK Football Policing Unit peer review report, completed on the 20th of October 25, states, the suggestion of the club was that the ultra group would not seek disorder with the local Muslim community, and many of the risk groups were afraid to come to Birmingham. However, in the absence of police reporting, the veracity of this statement is difficult to assess. In a letter to the Home Affairs Committee, dated 5th of January 26, Lord Mann writes, I rang Chief Constable Guildford in early September, proposing an early kick-off and highlighting my concerns, and had other text and phone interactions. Chief Constable Guildford informed me of the police advice to have no fans on October the 8th or 9th. There are therefore questions to be asked that include whether by the 20th of October 2025 West Midlands Police and the UK Football Policing Unit were aware that there was a suggestion that attendance by the ultras might be less of an issue than anticipated, whether West Midlands Police is able to say who made this suggestion and to whom this suggestion was made, whether West Midlands Police are able to say whether Lord Mann or anyone else conveyed this intelligence to West Midlands Police, the UK Football Policing Unit, or any other body at any point prior to the Home Affairs Committee on the 1st of December 25. Why was the suggestion that the Macabi Tel Aviv ultras may not attend either followed up to determine its veracity or reported to the SAG on the 24th of October 2025? Whether the former Chief Constable conveyed to West Midlands Police colleagues the substance of his conversation with Lord Mann. If so, did these discussions include anything about whether the Macabi Tel Aviv ultras were coming? Assuming Lord Mann had provided this information, what steps should have been taken to confirm its veracity? If there were credible evidence that the ultras were not attending, might this have altered the risk assessment? Do West Midlands Police want to offer any comment or response to any of these questions?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think, given your comments there of the suggestion of contact, either in messages or telephone calls between Lord Mann and the former Chief Constable, your referral to the IOPC in relation to the former Chief Constable, it would be both unwise and inappropriate for me to comment at all on any of those matters.
In view of my referral of the former Chief Constable to the IOPC, I do not intend to press you for any further comment or response. Moving now to damage to relationships, communities and trust and confidence. Reference has been made during the course of public debate to the Home Secretary and the Home Office not having raised any concerns when briefed by the former Chief Constable that a ban on away fans was likely. However, when, for example, the Community Security Trust and the leader of Birmingham City Council expressed concerns about the likely ban, it does not appear to have led West Midlands Police to reflect on whether the recommendation was the right one. Why was that?
Commissioner, I can answer by saying that will be a matter for those that were involved in that decision making to answer at the right point in it. I have been very fortunate since taking up this post, as I say, to have met with individuals and representatives from our Jewish community. I also met last week with members of the Community Security Trust, and that dialogue and liaison with a number of key stakeholders, particularly across Jewish communities, will continue. I can't comment on why the force didn't respond to those, given I wasn't involved in the command structure.
The former Chief Constable briefed the Home Secretary, the leader of Birmingham City Council and Lord Mann on the change in circumstances and planning after the meeting with the Dutch police between 8th and 10th of October, but not me. Paragraph 36 of the policing protocol requires the Chief Constable is expected to ensure that their PCC is regularly informed of their decisions and operational activity in a timely manner, so that the PCC can hold the Chief Constable to account for the totality of policing within their force area, including the operational delivery of the police service. That absence of proactive briefing by the Chief Constable is referred to in the HMIC preliminary letter. Can you confirm that you will ensure you proactively brief me on matters of this level of public importance in the future, as required by the policing protocol?
Commissioner, I can, as you said earlier in your introduction, I have been in post for 7 working days, and you and I have met 5 times during that period, not only to address the matters that are raised here, but actually our ongoing commitment to serve the public of the West Midlands. You and I meet once a week anyway. You will be aware that I was not available to meet with you yesterday due to another commitment, but I personally took to write to you at the end of the week to set out all of the steps that I had already taken in terms of stakeholder engagement, in particular meeting with members of both Jewish community and stakeholders across our Jewish communities as well. That will continue, as will our commitment to continue to come to this board so that you can publicly hold us to account, and I can continue to offer the explanations that the public need and deserve in relation to these matters as I can once some of those other inquiries and reports are published.
The Home Office, Home Secretary and Ministers are, of course, key partners and stakeholders. But what impact will the statement in Parliament on the 14th of January, in which the Home Secretary stated she no longer had confidence in the former Chief Constable, have on the relationship between West Midlands Police and the Home Office? Will it be harder, easier, or make no difference to you working with Home Office officials and ministers as a result of that statement?
Thank you, Commissioner. I won't comment on the Home Secretary's comments about the former Chief Constable, but I do note that she did not say she had lost confidence in this Chief Officer team. She did not say she had lost confidence in the force, and most importantly, she didn't say she'd lost confidence in the officers, staff and volunteers who are out there today protecting the public every day that they can. It will have no bearing on our professional relationship with both Home Office officials and ministers, and in fact on Wednesday of last week I met at the Policing Minister's request with her and her team to talk about our plans to address this and broader issues as the Acting Chief Constable of this police force.
The debate about the fixture has had negative impacts on both the Jewish and Muslim community and the wider general public in our region. How much damage has been done to community relations and relations between the police and the public, would you say?
Well, the first thing I would say is 3 million people live in the West Midlands. It is the honour of my working life to have been asked by you to be the Acting Chief Constable of this police force and lead the 12,000 officers, staff and volunteers that have the privilege of serving the public of the West Midlands. So it would be inappropriate for me to comment on what do 3 million people think. What I am absolutely clear on is that we have damaged our relationship with a number of communities, and in particular our Jewish community, which is why in my first day I was determined to meet with representatives of our Jewish communities. That was an opportunity for me to speak very briefly, but actually to listen. What was clear is their absolute candour, their bravery, their honesty, of many of the people there, not just actually about the policing of this fixture, but about the broader challenges and threats that individuals present face. I am truly grateful to all of the people that were present that shared their views. We have taken that feedback away. We are in communication in writing with a number of people that were there, and that information that we received will assist us in designing our plans. As I said to the members of the public that were present, Commissioner, and you were there, is please don't judge us on the words that we've said tonight, judge us on our actions. What is also clear, though, is that we have damaged the confidence more broadly of other members of the public. We will work tirelessly to do so. And whilst it is worth remembering, the point that I've made before is across a range of metrics, this police force is performing really well. On behalf of the organisation, I take responsibility for our failings now, but I never want that to impact on the legitimacy with which our officers and staff on the front line are being viewed by the public today, because they are there to protect the public and continue to serve them every day.
West Midlands Police covers one of the most culturally and ethnically diverse areas in the country. And in many respects, West Midlands Police has an effective track record of engaging with communities across the West Midlands. It's therefore, in many ways, all the more incomprehensible that West Midlands Police's local public engagement on such a sensitive event failed. What went wrong?
I suppose I'll try and answer a different question, which is I accept the areas that we've got wrong. I accept in particular on behalf of the organisation that we should have engaged more actively. We should have listened more. We should have listened more particularly to our Jewish communities, which we would have done so had we engaged earlier. We also should have had an equality impact assessment. What went wrong, I think, will be a matter for those involved in that command's change to give their explanations and hopefully from both any work that the IOPC do, the subsequent HMIC report and of course the Home Affairs Committee report, all of those will inform our learning, and our response to those learning points will be the most important thing. And Commissioner, we will be coming back here to update you publicly on the steps that we're going to take to address those failures.
At the Home Affairs Committee, it was asserted that West Midlands Police engaged with, rather than consulted, local community groups and mosques as part of the preparations for the fixture. As part of this engagement, was West Midlands Police aware of any racism, anti-Semitism or extremism in this engagement, and if so, would it be challenged by West Midlands Police?
As the Acting Chief Constable, I would hope that all of our staff, officers and volunteers would challenge all of those things wherever they saw it. The purpose of the police is to protect and serve the public. It is a relationship that exists with the support and the consent of the public, because policing and police officers have extraordinary powers. Those powers should be trusted by the public, and the public only trust us if they have confidence in us. In relation to those meetings that took place and our broader engagement, whilst I wasn't there, I can't comment on whether there were any examples of that. What I can tell you is my expectations of the entirety of our organisation as its Acting Chief Constable.
West Midlands Police have emphasised the need to remember that officers were motivated by ensuring public safety and were doing their best. The former Chief Constable has said that he wished to protect them from unfair criticism. However, is there a risk that this approach is perceived as a wish to deflect any criticism and a failure to be willing to learn from mistakes?
It's not appropriate for me to comment on the views of the former Chief Constable. What I can say, and what I've tried to do throughout the board today, Commissioner, is not comment on the conduct or otherwise of individual officers within the organisation at whatever level they are, because I don't want to impact on those ongoing inquiries and reports, in particular the IOPC. However, my intention, both today, since taking up this office, and going forward, is that we organisationally learn from it and that we are not defensive. One of the reasons for putting up my public apology on day one was, firstly, it was meant with absolute sincerity, but secondly was to show that the organisation under my leadership will learn from mistakes that it makes and will do so with both contrition and humility.
I'm going to turn now to the issue of equality impact assessments, and I appreciate you have made some comments about that. Does West Midlands Police usually conduct equality impact assessments on a per event basis, for example, a football fixture, a protest, or otherwise? So
I think the quick answer to that, Commissioner, is no. So there is an expectation that we should consider our duties under the Equality Act and APP, so Authorised Professional Practice, in relation to public order, says that we should display our duties under the Equality Act by conducting an equality impact assessment. I think from information that's available to us today, we don't routinely do that for public order, public safety policing. I'm not making excuses on behalf of the organisation. I just make the observation that we police hundreds and hundreds of football matches every year. Lots of them are very low key. And so it's easy to see why an organisation of our size and complexity would not do so. What is absolutely apparent, though, had we done so in this set of circumstances, we may have reached a different outcome. We would have certainly been more informed in doing so. The commanders involved, I think, would articulate where they think they have considered their duties under the Equality Act. There is reference to it in both the goal strategy and the sort of tactical plan. It is information that is in my possession at this moment in time. That said, the Deputy Chief Constable this week has already instructed that we will be doing equality impact assessments for all public order events, public safety events from now on.
Thank you. I mean, I welcome that. My first police and crime plan that I published in 2021 set out in that plan my wanting to see a better, more effective and increased use of equality impact assessments. And I'm going to read to you two extracts from my new police and crime plan that I published in March 2025. As you know, my police and crime plan is important for a number of reasons. I have a statutory duty to prepare and issue it. It sets out the strategic direction for policing in the West Midlands. The Chief Constable has to have regard to it when implementing policing, and I can use that plan to hold the Chief Constable to account. So I'm going to read two extracts from my existing police and crime plan published in March 2025. I expect West Midlands Police to comply with the public sector equality duty, embedding equality at all levels of the force, including the use of equality impact assessments to evaluate policies, procedures, practices and decisions. The plan also provides, I expect West Midlands Police to regularly review the impact of local, regional, national and international conflicts on community tensions and understand how those tensions can manifest locally. West Midlands Police will remain a trusted source of information, proactively addressing tensions and combating disinformation and misinformation that could escalate them. The reason, as I think you've conceded during the course of this session, that I believe equality impact assessments are important is for exactly the reasons that you've quite correctly identified during the course of this session, and I welcome your comments and I welcome your commitments to using those equality impact assessments more effectively, because I agree with you. I'd put it to you that had a dedicated equality impact assessment been carried out, it would have ensured a structured process to consideration and decision making that would have made it more likely West Midlands Police would have been alerted to ensuring engagement with all communities, including the local Jewish community, and that would have ensured earlier and more effective engagement. The question is, how could such a sensitive local issue not have been considered via a dedicated equality impact assessment, and would West Midlands Police ensure matters were done differently in the future, and if so, how?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think I've articulated my view that we should have completed an equality impact assessment. It will be for others as these matters progress to articulate why not. As your acting Chief Constable, I am fully cognizant of the policing protocol, and give you my assurance that I will absolutely have due regard to your policing plan. In my former substantive role as the Force's Deputy Chief Constable, I have overseen an almost 100% change of the Force's position in relation to the equality impact of every policy in the Force. And whilst I don't have the data in front of me, my last update is we were almost down to zero, with every single policy and procedure now being the subject of an equality impact assessment. I recognise and accept the points that you make, and it's a point that I've made to colleagues previously, is that given the very diverse nature of our communities across the West Midlands, we do see the impact of global tensions manifesting themselves on the streets of our communities. And whilst we are not perfect, we have policed many of those events effectively, notwithstanding the feedback that I received from the Jewish community on Tuesday evening. My assurance to you is that we will ensure that we use equality impact assessments for the policing of public order events and other operational activity where that would add real value to our decision making.
Thank you. That concludes the questions to be asked at board today in connection with this agenda item. Before I move on to my concluding comments relating to this agenda item, we do have some time available. So, Acting Chief Constable, if you want to add any further comments or make any further observations, we do have 5 minutes or so available if you would wish to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to finish by reiterating the point that I made at the start. Excuse me. Reiterating the points I made at the start, which is I started my first day in office with a sincere and full apology to the public of the West Midlands for the impact that our decision making have had. I approach this role and this office together with the temporary Deputy Chief Constable with transparency and candour. I want the force to learn from these events. I would re-emphasise the points that I've made previously, though, which is that the 12,000 officers, staff and volunteers of the West Midlands Police are out there every day serving and protecting the public, and are doing so in an effective way, which is one of the many reasons why the force came out of engaged status so quickly. But let's be clear, the findings of HMIC, as I said in my public apology in relation to these matters, are damning. I feel very grateful to the members of the Jewish community that came and sat in this room with us last Tuesday evening and shared their thoughts, their frustrations, both with our policing and decision making around these events, but also their broader experiences. I also am fully cognizant of the impact that some of both our activities and commentary have had on other communities across the West Midlands, particularly our Muslim community. I have got a number of individual meetings with stakeholders, faith groups and other organisations as we start to reset this. My immediate response as the Acting Chief Constable was to establish Operation Strive. We already had in place an operation called Fernmore, which was following the aftermath of the Home Secretary's statement on the 14th. On the 16th of January, when you appointed me as the Acting Chief Constable, we started the preparation for Operation Strive. Part of that was a tonal reset for the force, starting with our public apology. Operation Strive will coordinate our response and recovery from these events as we seek to rebuild the trust and confidence that the public of the West Midlands have in us. And I am taking personal responsibility for it as the Gold Commander, and I have appointed the Deputy Chief Constable as the Silver Commander. We will work tirelessly to restore the trust and confidence that the public have in us, and I will give you a fuller update on the objectives of that as that work progresses. The very cornerstone of British policing, Commissioner, is based on the trust and the confidence that the public have in us. If the public have trust and confidence in policing, that in turn means that our officers and staff are viewed by the public as legitimate in their eyes. It is my job and the Deputy Chief Constable's job to work tirelessly with you to restore that trust and confidence to allow our officers, staff and volunteers to do the job to the very best of their ability so that we can serve and protect the public that we're here to do. and I give you my assurance that we will do that without fear or favour. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, for your attendance this morning, and for answering my questions. In conclusion, let me be clear. This must never happen again. The following actions will follow from this agenda item. My team and I will identify all of the matters arising from this agenda item, and we will follow up on them. I remain committed to the implementation of my police and crime plan. I will continue to hold West Midlands Police to account, with particular reference to the matters that we've discussed today, and that includes ensuring that Operation Strive is fit for purpose and is implemented. I will also work with the Acting Chief Constable and West Midlands Police in connection with rebuilding trust and confidence and our many other common aims and objectives. I'll be commencing an extensive and wide-ranging process for recruitment of a Chief Constable. I'll consider and respond to the Home Affairs Committee report that is expected to be published in February. I'll consider and respond to the final HMIC report that is expected to be published in the summer. We'll identify any action that is required following the publication of those two reports. I'll continue to cooperate with the IOPC investigation and deal with any matters that arise from that. I will continue, as I always have done, my extensive and wide-ranging programme of community engagement across the West Midlands. However, I repeat, let me be clear, this must never happen again. Finally, as I indicated at the beginning of this meeting, want to address a final matter on the subject of allowing the Chief Constable to retire and sacking the Chief Constable. There has been much said and written about what has been referred to as the allowing of the Chief Constable to retire and what is referred to as the sacking of the Chief Constable. Unfortunately, what people will have read and heard does not reflect reality or the law. I'm sure people agree that as an elected Police and Crime Commissioner, it is important that I act in accordance with the law. So I thought it would be helpful for me to summarise the position that has been set out in law by Parliament. Firstly, a Police and Crime Commissioner has no power to prevent a Chief Constable from retiring, so it is not within my power to allow or not allow a Chief Constable to retire. Secondly, a Police and Crime Commissioner cannot simply sack a Chief Constable. A PCC can call upon a Chief Constable to resign or retire. Before doing that, the law requires a PCC to follow a clear process set out in law by Parliament. This process is not a matter of best practice or discretion for PCCs. It is a set of mandatory requirements of legislation that has been passed by Parliament. That process can be summarised as follows. The powers in Section 38 of the Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act 2011 are exercisable subject to the provisions of Schedule 8 of that Act and Regulation 11A of the Police Regulations 2003. The PCC must obtain the views of HMIC in writing and must have regard to those views. He must give the Chief Constable a written explanation of the reasons why he is proposing to call for his retirement or resignation. He must notify the relevant police and crime panel he is proposing to call on the Chief Constable to retire or resign, and must provide it with a copy of the reasons given to the Chief Constable for proposing so to do. He must give the Chief Constable the opportunity to make representations about the proposal. he must consider those representations and provide them to the panel. If he still proposes to require the Chief Constable to retire or resign, after so doing, he must notify the Chief Constable and the panel that this remains his intention, providing a written explanation to both and to HMIC. The panel, so notified, must within 6 weeks make a recommendation to the PCC as to whether or not he should call for the retirement or resignation. Before doing so, the panel may consult HMIC and must hold a scrutiny hearing at which the PCC and the Chief Constable may make representations. The PCC must consider the panel's recommendation. Only then may the PCC make his final decision to call upon the Chief Constable to resign or retire. The PCC may accept or reject the panel's recommendation and must notify the panel of this decision. If a PCC does not follow that process, a PCC would be acting unlawfully, and any decision would be quashed by the High Court if the Chief Constable challenged it. The Chief Constable would also have been likely to bring an injunction claim in order to remain as the Chief Constable, and my office would have been liable for his legal costs. I'd encourage people to read the judgment of the High Court in the Queen on the application of David Crompton and Police and Crime Commissioner for South Yorkshire and Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and South Yorkshire Police and Crime Panel in 2017, which illustrates what happens when PCCs and indeed any elected politicians do not comply with the law. It's worth noting in that case that the statutory process took 5 months to conclude. There was then a further period of 9 months before the claim for judicial review was concluded, so a total of about 14 months in all. Together with the significant adverse financial consequences that followed, people calling for the sacking of the Chief Constable might care to reflect on that when considering the outcome on the 16th of January that resulted in the retirement of the Chief Constable with immediate effect. I'd also encourage people to read the independent review of the departure of the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police on the 10th of February 2022, published on the 2nd of September 2022 and carried out by Sir Tom Windsor, a former Chief Inspector of Constabulary. That case again illustrates what happens when mayors or PCCs, and indeed any elected politicians, do not act in accordance with the law. If Parliament wishes to provide for Chief Constables to be summarily dismissed on the spot, then Parliament should amend the existing process to enable that to happen. Until then, PCCs and mayors must act in accordance with the law as prescribed by Parliament. That concludes agenda item 3. We'll now be taking a 15-minute break before we commence agenda item 4, which will be policing precept and budget. Thank you very much, everyone.